guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to go ahead and talk about some recent nonfiction reads. A couple of these I had picked up because I saw them floating around BookTube and I was really excited about them, so I wanted to go ahead and pick them up. One of them I actually saw on Book of the Month because they were showcasing it for Women's History Month, so I went and picked that one up. But I will go ahead and start with my lowest rated read and work my way up to my highest rated read. So we will go ahead and get started. So the first one that I want to start with is Thick and Other Essays by Tressie McMillan Cottom. And so this has 8 essays in here, and these focus on a bunch of different topics. Some of those include things like money, race, beauty, the media. And so it kind of focuses on how within those topics, they're different between the Black community and then the white community. And so for example, with beauty, it talks about how beauty standards are different between Black women and white women. Overall, I ended up giving this collection of essays a 3 stars. There were just some essays that I felt like I connected with more so than others. And I felt that way because first off, with the very first essay, I just felt like it was really hard to get into. I just felt like for me, this author kind of went in like roundabout ways to kind of get to the point of what she was trying to say in some of these essays. I felt myself having to kind of go back in certain places to kind of figure out what it was that the author was trying to say. And it kept kind of taking me out of what I was reading because I was trying to figure out what the message was that I was supposed to be getting. And I don't really like that kind of reading experience. Now, in the essays that I did enjoy, I believe it was 3 total essays out of the 8 that I really did enjoy. But out of the 3 that I really did enjoy, I found out from those 3 that the messages in those, or whatever it was that the author was trying to convey, I just felt like in those, it was really clear what it was that I was supposed to get out of those essays. But then the ones that I didn't like, it was really hard for me to grasp what it was that I was supposed to be getting or what it was that I was supposed to be trying to understand. And like I said, I just didn't really mesh well with those. Now, I will say that a lot of people really did enjoy this collection overall. So it's probably just me and just kind of like, you know, my reading taste and how I'm able to interpret different like writing styles, and this could just be something that just didn't mesh well with me. But for example, one of the ones that I really did enjoy was a essay that was called Dying to be Competent. And in this one, it talks about how Black people are kind of seen as not competent. And then the example that she gave was how when she was giving birth to one of her children, she was having some complications. And when she went into the doctor's office, they didn't really take her complications all that seriously. And she was saying how if she was white or maybe a different race, maybe the doctors and nurses would have taken her complications more seriously coming from someone else. So that one I really liked. There was another one, I believe, that was called Black is Over, or Special Black, and then Black Girlhood Interrupted. So those were the 3 that I really enjoyed and was able to connect with in this story. Again, other people might really connect with this. Like I said, it's probably just a preference thing. I do think if you are someone that really connects with shorter stories, this is definitely something that you would really like. If you don't like shorter stories, again, it's a collection of essays. Maybe you might not connect with this as much, but overall, I did give it 3 stars. Even the ones that I didn't connect with as much, there were still pieces of it that I liked. I did tab a lot of this up because she was dropping some little nuggets here and there that I really did like. So overall, a 3 stars, and I would still recommend this. So then the next one that I picked up that I was super excited about was Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism by Amanda Montell. And I saw a lot of people picking this one up, and I was really excited about this one. If you've been here on my channel for a little bit, I'm pretty sure you've heard me say this a couple of times at least, that I am intrigued by anything that has to do with anything cult. When I saw this one going around, I saw the title of it, I just knew that I had to pick this one up. And this one has a really basic premise. So this one is about how people get involved in cults and how people use words to influence people to join different types of cults. And so this book is actually broken up into different parts based on the different type of cults, which first off, that was really interesting to me because I didn't really know that there were different types of cults like that, because when I think of the word cult, I'm thinking of like your basic, like your Children of God or your like the Jonestown cult, which those are brought up in here. But she has different type of cults that I never thought about. So this is broken up into different parts. So you have your suicide cults like the Jonestown, the one, I'm blanking on the actual name right now, but it's the one where the people thought that they were going to go up to space, I guess. And then she has a whole section for Scientology. She has one for the MLMs, which is basically the pyramid schemes. She has one for social media. She has one for the workout cults. So just a lot of things that I didn't realize. And so within those different parts, she kind of breaks down the type of language that is used to entice people to join those type of cults. And so I really thought that this was really interesting. But I ended up giving this book overall a 3 stars because overall, I just wanted so much more from this. And I kind of thought we would get a lot more from this. I wish, and I don't say this a lot about books because I think that a lot of books are way too long, but this is like one of those books that I wish was longer because I wish that we could have spent a little bit more time with each part just so that she could give us like, I don't know, a little bit more information on each of the cults that she brought up, or I'm not even really sure what more I could have wanted. I just don't really know exactly. I just felt like everything was just like basic. I don't know the word that I want to use, but it's just really, I just wanted more information. I just felt like she just threw a lot of information at us, but she didn't give us a lot of context to the information she was giving us, if that makes sense. So it was like, I feel like this would be like a good starting point to then go out and find more information somewhere else. That's what I'll say. But I did enjoy this. I would still recommend this. Overall, I just thought that this was going to be something a tad bit different than what I got. And from this, I just wish that I got a little bit more. So then the last one that I have is Evicted, Poverty and Profit in the American City by Matthew Desmond. I'm just going to tell you right now, I ended up giving this one a 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one, but this one was really sad. So this one actually follows about, I think it was like 8 families, and this takes place primarily in Milwaukee. And so what this author did was he followed 8 families around that was in the middle of like different evictions. And so half of the families were living in a trailer park, and then the other families were under another landlord that had these other properties. And so we're following these families that all have different type of situations. So they're all on some sort of social security. They all get some sort of benefit from the government. And we're seeing how, with the type of benefits that they receive from the government, how they're able to live off of those or not be able to live off of those, and how the landlords treat these tenants, and how little they get from the government and how they're supposed to be able to get by month to month with the little bit they get from the government. And so this was really heartbreaking because, one, you learn how little people are given to survive off of, which is nothing. And then two, you learn how crooked a lot of these landlords are. One of the landlords, her name was Sharina, and I forget what her raggedy husband's name was, but they're the ones that have the random like properties that they had people in, and just some of the things that they would do to these people who were their tenants, and how they would take advantage of them and not fix things that were wrong within the apartments. Most of the tenants, they had children, and you know, they were barely getting by with based off of what they were getting from the government. And you know, if they were short, the landlord would tell them that they were allowed to fix things in not only their apartment, but maybe somebody else's apartment to be able to work off whatever leftover rent they weren't able to pay. And they would make these arrangements with the tenants, but then they would go back on their word and then tell the tenants that they would have to then come up with the money somehow, knowing that the tenants don't have the money. And it was just crazy, like what these tenants would do. And then over in this trailer park, the guy's name that ran the trailer park was Tobin. And this trailer park was disgusting with the way that it was described. And it had, you know, I believe it had like a lot of drug addicts in there. It wasn't clean. They were already being cited because of it wasn't like up to code. And basically, Tobin was a guy who would let any and everybody live in this place. And then, you know, he would make these little side deals with people of, you don't have to pay me now, you can pay me later. But then, you know, he would go back on his word and then have them pay like double. And it was just like, it was a mess with how these like landlords were treating these tenants. And then like, just the amount that the government would give these people. So it's like the amount that they were getting for SSI is enough to barely pay your rent, but then you don't have enough to cover your bills. I think I have an example. So for one of the people, it says that one of the tenants received $628 a month from SSI, and then his rent was $550, and then he had $78 to live off of for the rest of the month. Mind you, he has to feed himself and his 2 sons, plus you have utilities and anything else that you need. So how is $78 going to do anything for anybody? So that's like the system that we're living in. And so we're not only following them in how they're having to try and pay their rent, but we're also following what happens to them once they get evicted and how hard it is to then try and find another place once you have an eviction on your record. So I feel like after reading this, like some information I kind of knew just from things that you just kind of like hear while you're like out and about, you know what I mean? Just from like other people's conversation, just like general things you hear about. But a lot of this stuff, like I just never knew, because if you've never experienced any of this stuff before, it's just stuff that you don't know. And it's so sad. And it's just so sad that so many people in America have to live through this every day. And so this author actually explains the process of him writing this book at the end of this book. And so he kind of talks about how he actually stayed in the trailer park, how he lived with some of the tenants, and how he actually had to follow them around. He's a white man, and some of these tenants were black, and how some of the black tenants were treated, and then when they would go out and try to find somewhere to live, and how they would be turned down. But then if he went and tried to get the same apartment that they just got turned down for, that he would get a different response. Surprise, surprise. So he kind of, you know, talked about the experiences there. He also gave his own suggestions of how the system could be better, which they were good suggestions, but will those actually take place? Who knows with the type of government that we have. But if you have not read this book, or if you have not heard of this, I would definitely pick this up. I think it is very eye-opening. If you have never like experienced anything like this, or don't have a clue, or, you know, don't know anyone that has ever gone through an eviction or anything like this, I think, like I said, this is going to be very, very, very eye-opening. It's very sad. There are some very sad scenes in there. There was a very sad scene with like a house fire, and how one of the landlords responded to that was horrific, and it really made me upset. And I can't say enough about this, but as much as I want to say I enjoyed it, it wasn't necessarily enjoyable, but it was very informative. Like I said, I gave this a 5 stars, and I would highly recommend. So that is actually all that I have for you guys, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.